rear of the vanguard of our evaluators. Praise. What was good, David, definitely is that you knew your topic. You didn't refer to notes. You were focusing on the audience the entire time. You were conveying lots of information. And that's hard to do when you're giving a speech. It's not just to convey ideas, but information. So you had a lot of information in your head, which was very good. What appeared to be a weakness with all the slides and all that data ended up being your point. So that was praise. You threw us off. You certainly threw me off as your evaluator. And me being a speaker, and I love to present, I use visual aids many times, and I know how to make slides convey information. I was getting confused, and I was all set to make that, one of your points of polish. But you use that purposefully, which surprised me. It was very good. This being your 8th speech, you showed acumen in improving all of your elements of organization, purpose, body language, vocal variety, all the things that you have built up to this point. So that was also a very good thing to see, as we all are continuing to build on the work we've done in the past. Polish. One thing I'd be careful and just warn of is audience participation. It's great when you get people involved. Sometimes it can throw you off. We see that all the time in church with children's sermon. The pastor might ask a question, and this kid pulls something out of left field, and you got to reel them on in. And especially in an event like this with food, you don't know if someone has a peanut allergy. That might be something might happen. So just a warning, just a concern. Know your audience. We know each other, but that's just a hidden thing we may not even know about each other. A distinction between visual aids and props. This being a visual aid speech that you were evaluated on and trying to improve upon. Not necessarily that you don't want to involve the audience again using props, but I know one of the speeches I gave earlier, I had props versus visual aids. And again, that wasn't a bad thing. I just a note, you had props and visual aids. So this being a visual aid speech, you could just focus on one, but not necessarily a bad thing. One thing I was slightly distracted on was the angle of technology. And I know we have limits based on the room geometrics, but to be able to have a screen maybe over here, so you can just kind of still have your eye on the audience, and maybe the laptop's over there, we can move the cable over so that you're not always looking back and wondering which slide's next. That is just a problem we have. Sometimes we don't have control over, but we can actually get here early and do things like that to try to reduce the amount of distraction there, so you're always focusing forward, or at least on an angle with some part of the audience there. The maps could show some greater context and gave us a lot of information too. And this we see in our Bibles too. Here's a picture of Israel, and it's like, well, where is it? Well, we zoom out. You'll see Egypt and Africa and Europe, and you're like, ooh, that's Israel. It's just one of those things where we don't know where things are. The maps are so zoomed in just there. Even the map of the United States can have that problem. But that would be helpful when you're conveying information to give people some greater context. Exactly where is this place? People may not even know where what chunks of Europe are, Europe versus Scandinavia. So letting the slides convey information and not just data, although you did do that to confuse us. So here's all this data, look at all these countries, look at all these territories, look at all this, we're like, what in the world? That's my point. It's confusing. So just that when you give presentations based on visual aids or using visual aids in future presentations, be aware of that, because it can be very easy for us to get lost in just giving a lot of data that's not relevant. So it's like looking at an analog watch versus a digital watch. Sometimes the base of the clock lets us know, oh, I'm late, versus a number. Well, a number, okay, whatever. So that's one thing about data versus information. That's all we're about.